with the game show. This hour, who's Jesus? Is he Emmanuel or a mere prophet? Emmanuel or mere prophet? 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-318-7884. Our guest is Carlo Broussard. Carlo, author and speaker here at Catholic Answers, author most recently of Meeting the Protestant Challenge. Before that, a book called Prepare the Way, and more books on the way. So tell me what the word Emmanuel means.
God with us.
God with us.
So we're basically asking the question, do we have good reason to think and believe that Jesus is God? Mm-hmm. Or does the historical evidence point to Jesus being merely a prophet? And of course, we're emphasizing the word merely there, because as Christians, we do acknowledge he is a prophet, right?
Yeah.
But the question is he merely a prophet, or is he God with us, divine, equal to the Father, consubstantial with the Father, right? Of the same nature, being identical with the Father, being identical to the same divine essence.
Which is a position that is shared by almost all people who claim the name Christian. Not everyone who claims that name agrees with that, but almost everyone.
Correct. And so the question then becomes, well, what is the reality of a Christian? And as Christians, we would say those who acknowledge the divinity of Jesus would fall under the umbrella of Christian. Right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, we could qualify
as long as they mean by God what we mean by God.
That's right. And then, of course, we could qualify, in ordinary circumstances, one who is baptized technically is a Christian, ontologically speaking, having sanctifying grace in the soul. But concerning beliefs, whether you would put yourself in the camp of Christian, normally it's those who confess Jesus as God made flesh, right? Yeah. Now, there are some who will claim the name of Christian, but deny that Jesus is consubstantial or equal in essence with the Father, right? Mm-hmm. And thus, the conclusion of that being that Jesus is outside of creator, right? Outside the boundary of creator. So that would put him in the camp of creature. And of course, traditional Christianity would deny that and say, no, Jesus is not creature. He is creator, one in being with the Father and, of course, with the Holy Spirit.
You know who accepts Jesus as a prophet, but not as God? A great big giant world religion, second biggest world religion. You know, Islam, yeah, right. Yeah. So maybe some Muslim folks would want to call and have that conversation with Carlo. If you're not a Christian, you're always welcome here, and maybe give reasons why you don't think that Jesus is God. 888-318-7884 is the number. Certainly not. Muslims are not the only non-Christians who. I mean, every non-Christian essentially would fall into that category.
Correct.
I mean, I was not too long ago reading some stuff by Deepak Chopra, who is kind of a New Agey in a Hindu tradition kind of guy. Yeah. And he calls Jesus a rishi, meaning he's an enlightened teacher. But that's not the same as God.
No, not at all. Some sort of wise man, right? So this gets back to, the classic trilemma of C.S. Lewis, right? He's either Lord, liar, or lunatic, right? He can't be merely a wise man. He can't be merely a good moral man, or can't be merely a prophet. And the reason why we say that is because of certain things that he said about himself, namely his claims to be divine. And of course, that raises the question, well, where does he make those claims? What is the evidence for those claims? And if he made such divine claims, well, then it follows that he could not be merely a prophet, merely a wise teacher, merely a good moral man, because no good moral man is going to claim to be divine when he knows he's not, right? No wise teacher is going to claim, or no wise teacher is going to think he is God when he is not, because otherwise he wouldn't be wise. He would be a lunatic, right? He wouldn't be a prophet, right? To go and claim that he's God when he's not God, he would definitely not be a wise prophet, you see? And so if he made the divine claims, then the question becomes, well, do we have good reason to think that he was lying, or do we have good reason to think that he was a lunatic? Because those are the alternative explanations. He either is who he says he is, God, on condition that we can establish that he claimed to be God, or he's not who he says he is. If not, then either liar or lunatic. So if we can show that he's neither liar nor lunatic, well, then our only option is that he is who he says he is.
888-318-7884, the number. I called out Muslims and Hindus, and we'd love to have a conversation with you if you are a Muslim or Hindu person. Perhaps you're an atheist person who doesn't believe in God at all. Well, then Jesus is definitely not God if you are. But maybe you're looking into Christianity and you want some clarification about what exactly are these Christians talking about when they call Jesus Emmanuel, God with us. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884. And of course, if you're a Christian, if you're a Catholic, you're welcome to call as well. Maybe you need some clarification about some aspect of our understanding of the Trinity, or how it could be that Jesus is God and Son of God, that kind of thing. You're welcome to call.
How is it that Jesus, who's God, dies? Right?
Yeah, there's a good one. Yeah, I guess that's a pretty basic one. 888-318-7884. Shall we go to the calls? Because we got a bunch of them already.
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead.
All right, let's start with Rich in Cincinnati. Cincinnati, Ohio. Rich, you there with us?
I think this is on topic. I've been listening to you guys for years. But this latest atheistic claim now is that Josephus made up and wrote the whole Bible, and that Christ as God is invalid. I'm a cradle Catholic, but
okay,
that is a big claim for Josephus, I have to say. The Jewish historian,
first century Jewish historian, late first century, right around AD 90 when he's writing. Yeah, Rich, I mean, ultimately, this is simply an assertion. And so the appropriate answer is an assertion back and saying, no, he didn't. Right? Now, if they want to attempt to provide reasons why they think he wrote the New Testament, well, then they're going to have to put forward some evidence of that. And then that's where the dance begins, right? When we begin to tangle a little bit and go back and forth concerning the evidence that they're going to put forward on the table. Now, you could take the approach, Rich, and put forward positive evidence to make a case for the Christian claim that the New Testament was indeed written by first century Christians who were disciples of Jesus Christ, some of which were eyewitnesses, such as Matthew and John, and then Mark and Luke being close companions of eyewitnesses. And when we make that case, we have very good reason to establish a general trustworthiness of these New Testament documents. Not only that, they were written by Christians, but written by Christians who had very close temporal proximity to the events that they are recording, thus establishing an ability to write reliable history. And then when you look at the dating of these documents written by eyewitnesses and close associates of eyewitnesses, then you have even greater reason to trust them because, for example, scholars are able to date, Mark for sure within or right at 30 years after the events they are recording, and even the Gospel of Luke right around AD 60. So that's right at 30 years after the events they're recording. And the Acts of the Apostles, the sequel to Luke's Gospel, coming about AD 62. So given the early testimony, both by eyewitnesses, close associates of eyewitnesses, and even the close temporal proximity, we as Christians, Rich, can mount a strong positive case for the reliability of the New Testament documents, that they are giving to us what Jesus said and did, and we have good reason to trust them in that. So the bottom line, Rich, is that this claim is simply dismissing outright, without even looking into the evidence, the mountain of evidence that Christians put forward for the reliability of the New Testament. So my question to them, or your question to your friend, Rich, could be, well, have you ever considered the Christian evidence for the New Testament reliability? And if not, well, then their claim has no ground whatsoever. And they would have, in order to be intellectually honest, they would have to look at that that Christian apologetic for the historical reliability of the New Testament. A good resource for that, Rich, would be some books by Craig Blomberg. He wrote one book called The Historical Reliability of the Gospels, so you could check that out. And then also he wrote a book on the historical reliability of the New Testament in general. So those would be two resources that you could right away begin looking into to look into the historical evidence for the reliability of the New Testament in order to refute this claim by atheists saying that Josephus wrote the New Testament, which is just historically false.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks very much. If I may add, Carlo,
yeah,
Josephus wasn't that good a writer either. There's no way that dude wrote the Gospel of John.
Yeah. Now, what is interesting about Josephus, I mean, he does come into play. And it'll be interesting for Rich, if he's still listening out there. I know he probably hung up there, but Josephus does come into play because Josephus does mention some details about Jesus and other details about the Gospels and surrounding Jesus's life. For example, he mentions that Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate.
Yep.
He mentions John the Baptist. He mentions James, the quote-unquote brother of the Lord. He speaks of the Herodian dynasty, right? So there are certain details that Josephus does affirm, which corroborates the gospel narratives, right? And lends trust to the Gospels, given that you have non-Christian corroboration.
Yeah, for apologists, Josephus is one of the good guys in that you guys can always go, like when people question the historicity of Jesus, for example, you go, hey, I don't even have to look in the Bible. There's people like Josephus within the same century as Jesus lived.
That's right.
Testifying about the details of Jesus' life.
Amen. And we would also want to initially challenge the fundamental assumption that you have to have non-Christian sources to establish the historicity of Jesus, because that assumption is flawed in and of itself. But if we concede for argument's sake, we do have evidence from outside of Christian sources, from both Josephus and even the 1st and 2nd century Roman historian Cornelius Tacitus in his work, The Annals, when he refers to Jesus being crucified under Pontius Pilate as well.
Rich, again, thank you very much for that. Jesus, Emmanuel, or a mere prophet, our topic this hour. If you are, perhaps you're one of those people who's convinced that Jesus is not God, and you'd like to challenge that, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. If you'd just like a clarification on what we mean, what Christians are, because words have all kinds of different meanings, and not everyone is clear on what are we talking about when we say that Jesus is God, 888-318-7884. If you're a Christian person, a Catholic person, and you would like help explaining the person of Jesus, the divine personhood of Jesus, 888-318-7884. Carlo has a wonderful book. I mentioned it up at the beginning, Meeting the Protestant Challenge, How to Answer 50 Biblical Objections to Catholic Beliefs. It's on sale at 30% off right now at shop.catholic.com, which is something Carrie does when Carlo's on the air. His books go on sale, and now's a good time to get them. You can get Meeting the Protestant Challenge, as I said, at shop.catholic.com for 30% off. I want to read you, I don't think Carlo even knows I have these, some notes we got from people. Sean says, great job, Carlo. I love apologetics, and this book is a great reference. Maureen says, wow, one of the best books I've read to answer the Protestant fundamentalists' accusations of veering from Christ's church.
Wow, fantastic. I was not aware of those comments.
Well, I got more.
Praise
God. I'm not done, man. Here go. Jeff says, love this book, but that's not all he said. Carlo did an amazing job. Many of the answers I found gave me clarity for even my own questions. It's an easy read that helps take the reader deeper down a very coherent path and eliminates a lot of the frustration of flipping through scriptures and not gaining the insight you are looking for. I highly recommend this book. So that's
praise be Jesus.
But Carlo is not against you flipping through scriptures, by the way. He'd like you to do that. But Meeting the Protestant Challenge, 30% off today at shop.catholic.com.
There's only one. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
There's all kinds of prayers. There's all kinds of ways of praying. There's all kinds of methods of praying. There's a Salesian method, and Francis de Sales, and Ignatius of Loyola. There's Franciscan methods and Dominican methods, and you name it, we got it. But sometimes we depend on a method too much. St. Teresa said that prayer was conversation with God. Do you have a hard time conversing with people? No, I don't have a hard time. Well, that's how it is with God.
Every Advent season, we sing O Come, Emmanuel. We don't sing the Christmas carols. We sing the Advent carols, getting ready. O come, Emmanuel. What does that word Emmanuel means? It means God with us, as Carlo told us in the first segment. And we believe, we Catholics believe, Jesus is God with us, God come among his people. And if you don't believe that, this is a great hour for you, because we throw the question to you: Jesus, God, Emmanuel, or a mere prophet? 888-318-7884. And of course, if you do believe with us, whether you are a fellow Christian or a fellow Catholic, but you'd like some help clarifying the understanding of Jesus as God, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Jeffrey in San Antonio, Texas, listening on the great Guadalupe Radio Network down there in Texas, is next. Jeffrey, your question for Carlo.
Yes, it is a great radio station. Thank you for the plug. So I believe that Muslims believe in Emmanuel, that God is with us, and Jews believe that God is with us in Emmanuel, and so do Christians. And so I guess my question would be, I've always understood that God's children are the God-fearing Christians, the God-fearing Jews, and the God-fearing Muslims. Not fear from the standpoint of being afraid, but fear from the omnipotence of who God is and what he is. So my question would be, how, and what else is interesting is that Christians believe in all three elements. The Jews only in the Father, Christian in the Trinity, and Muslims, really, if you think about it, follow the Holy Spirit. This is why there's no face on their God. So my question then becomes, how through Christ are the God-fearing children all united, if you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, Jeffrey, so there's a lot you put on the table there. My first thought is I would deny that all three groups are considered to be God's children in the sense of falling within the boundaries of covenantal familyship with God, currently speaking, since the advent of Christ, right? I mean, so there are common elements among all three religions, Jeffrey, in as much as we all acknowledge the existence of the one infinite creator of heaven and earth, and in as much as we all acknowledge that there is one infinite reality, such that it is pure existence itself, relying upon nothing outside of itself for its existence, but is existence itself, the source from which all being comes outside of himself, we agree. And so that's a common element that we can arrive at through philosophical reasoning, by reason alone, and then also too, both Judeo and Christian revelation affirms that which we can know philosophically speaking. But there are differences, right? So the Muslims do not acknowledge that Jesus is Emmanuel. They might acknowledge that God is with us in some way, in a spiritual way, but they do not acknowledge that Jesus is God made flesh. In fact, they deny that Jesus is divine, for that's what we mean as Christian, that Jesus is God made flesh. He is equal to the Father, having the same divine essence. Jews, our Jewish brethren, we have commonality with them because they are our ancestry. Because we believe as Christians, Jeffrey, that the Christian religion is the flowering of Judaism, right? That we are a people, at least for us as Gentiles, we are grafted on to the people of God that God began with Abraham, right? So God promised Abraham in Genesis 12 that through his seed, the multitude, all the peoples of the earth would be blessed. And that blessing, Jeffrey, came about in and through Jesus, so that those who are united to Jesus are in turn members of God's covenantal family. So we have connection with our Jewish brethren. And we acknowledge their history to be our history because Christianity was present in Judaism in seed form, going all the way back to the beginning with Abraham. But currently, our Jewish brethren there, our spiritual elder brothers, right, if we can refer to them as that, deny that Jesus is Emmanuel, in that he is God made flesh, the fullness of the deity dwelling in him, as St. Paul says in Colossians 2:9. And so these are differences, Jeffrey, important differences that distinguish us from each other concerning the true religion of God. Because if Jesus is who he says he is, namely equal to the Father, and we can believe that based upon his resurrection, then the religion that he proclaimed, namely the Christian religion, being the fulfillment of what God revealed to the people of Israel throughout salvation history, then that's going to be the true religion. And that's what we as Christians claim. So there are commonalities, and we acknowledge that, but there are essential differences that distinguish one from the other and allow for us to assess which of the religions are the true religion of, which of the religions is the true religion of God.
Jeffrey, what do you make of that?
That makes a lot of sense, but I'd also be interested in knowing Carlos' thoughts that God throughout time has raised up other nations and other people and used them for his purpose. And could that be what the Muslims represent?
Okay.
And I guess I'm getting to the point where I believe with everything that you just mentioned, the similarities and the differences, but that doesn't preclude the Muslims and I'm asking, Jews from reaching heaven, does it?
Okay, so two things here, right? So let me see if I...
No, we're just ranging far and wide. That's all. Okay. But we have time. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, Jeffrey. No, very good questions, brother. Let me see if I can take a stab at both of them. I discerned two issues there. Number one, concerning God leading other nations, right, and other people coming about. And the question, perhaps it seemed, Jeffrey, was, could it be that those other peoples, in this case, such as the Muslims, and in particular their religion, being a part of God's plan? Okay, my answer to that question would be the false judgments that are made concerning God and God's relationship with humanity, and judgments made about the alleged prophet Muhammad, we would say is false. Okay, so those judgments that individuals are making concerning these things are false. They're not in accord or in harmony with reality and with what God's plan is. Okay, now that's not to say that God can't bring greater good from the permission of these erroneous judgments that take place within human history and amongst the variety of religions, okay? So this gets back to the mystery of God's permissive will of permitting false religions, right? Permitting erroneous judgments being made concerning God and our relationship with him. But in God's divine providence, in his wisdom, he will always order those erroneous judgments and false religions, and they will be incorporated into the providential plan of God somehow, to where he will order all things to the ultimate good of the new heaven and the new earth at the second coming, right? So this is where we say that God leads all things to the greater good for those who believe in him, Romans 8:28, including evil, right? And evil would include erroneous judgments made about God and his relationship to us, because those are privations, right? Now, concerning your question about salvation, Jeffrey, it is true that just because somebody is not visibly a Christian, or in our case as Catholics, not visibly a member of the Catholic Church, it is true that it is possible for such an individual to be saved. So it is possible for somebody outside the visible boundaries of the Catholic Church to be saved, and certain conditions have to be met. And this is what Gaudium et Spes taught and Lumen Gentium taught, that in God's infinite plan, if somebody is not invincible for his or her ignorance of the fullness of the revelation subsisting in the Catholic Church, and they're responding to whatever graces God is giving them, actually speaking, right? Following the truth that they come to know, living in accord with the good that they come to know, it is possible for them to be saved in mysterious ways known to God alone. The only way that we know that God is revealed by which God saves is through baptism. But that doesn't mean God can't work outside the boundaries of the sacraments. So it is possible, but that doesn't mean their religion is the true religion. Christianity is the true religion.
Jeffrey, thank you very much. Whole bunch of folks on the line. Jesus, Emmanuel, or mere prophet? This hour with Karlo Broussard, 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Cy. I'm really proud of the 2 episodes of Catholic Answers Focus that we have for you this week. And if you haven't yet become a subscriber to our free podcast, this is definitely the week you should start. Monday, we've got an interview with Father Hugh Barber about the relationship between your soul and the Blessed Trinity. How is it that the triune God relates to your soul? Talk about news you can use. And Wednesday, we tackle Christopher Columbus with the world's leading Columbus scholar, Dr. Carol Delaney. Is it time to give up on Columbus? In the light of modern scholarship, should we be taking down Columbus statues and murals? Prepare to be surprised by the truth of the man. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Focus wherever you get your podcasts, or listen anytime at CatholicAnswersFocus.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
In what forms does the Word of God come to us? How do we know that the Bible is inspired, inerrant, and complete? Why do we need tradition to help us understand Scripture? Doesn't the Bible teach that it alone is sufficient for salvation? In 20 Answers, Scripture and Tradition, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, examining the first and most important issue in the Christian faith, the manner in which God has communicated to us the saving truths of the gospel. 20 Answers, Scripture and Tradition is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Monday on More to Life, Manic Monday.
We'll help you reclaim your peace at the start of the week.
That's Monday on More to Life. Now, back to Catholic Answers.
My favorite topic this hour, Jesus. I'd talk about Jesus every hour if we could. Just make every hour about Jesus. This one, the question is he Emmanuel or a mere prophet? Emmanuel meaning God with us. Karlo Broussard here to take your calls, 888-318-7884. I do want to brag a little bit, though. I just was hearing the beginning of the little spot we just ran for this week's Focus episodes. I'm going to tell you, next week's Focus episodes, oh my gosh, just as good. I feel really good about what we're doing. You might know that a lot of statues of Father Junipero Serra are being torn down, some vandalized, destroyed here in California and around. But he's very big here in California. So we just went straight to the top. We couldn't get the Pope who canonized Serra and made him a saint. He's busy in Rome. So we went one level down. We got the Archbishop of San Francisco to talk with us about Father Junipero Serra, what he means to Catholics, and whether we should be getting rid of his statues. That'll be on Focus on Monday. Listen, if you're not getting Catholic Answers Focus, big mistake. You want to get that. Just go to CatholicAnswersFocus.com or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Sometimes we have Karlo on there, and we'll tackle an eternal issue. We'll tackle something about the nature of God or one of the proofs of God's existence or something, and then Sometimes things will come up like taking down statues of Christopher Columbus, which we tackled this week with the world's #1 Columbus scholar, or that people start tearing down statues of Junipero Serra, and we get the Archbishop of San Francisco to come. I think you'll be really happy if you do subscribe to Catholic Answers Focus. All right, back to the phones. Kathy in Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, it's actually Kathy. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
Hang on, I missed the difference. Did you say Cassie?
Yes, Kathy.
I got you, Cassie. I apologize to you. Go ahead with your comment or question for Carla.
I was just calling to say that Jesus Christ never purported himself to be God, only the Son of God, and said that all of the children of the earth are also sons and daughters of God.
Okay.
Never did Jesus Christ ever put people in different religions and say that they wouldn't be saved.
Well, Jesus did say explicitly concerning the second part of your statement, Cassie, in Matthew chapter 10, verses 30 through 33, within that context, Jesus says, "He who acknowledges me before men, I will acknowledge them before my Father. He who does not acknowledge me before men, I will not acknowledge them before my Father." And so Jesus makes it very clear that the condition for being saved is acknowledging him, right? And if we make an act of the will to directly not acknowledge him, not profess him as who he is, then we will not be able to be with him in heaven and be saved. Now, that does not mean just because you're not a Catholic or just because you're in some other religion, you're automatically going to hell, because only God can judge the inner movements of the mind and the heart to know whether that individual, who just so happens to be outside the visible boundaries of the Catholic Church, is actually denying Jesus, right? Because sometimes somebody might verbally say, I don't believe in Jesus, but given the inner workings of the mind and the heart, which only God has access to, it's possible that they can legitimately be ordered to the good. They have a false perception of Jesus, and so they might be rejecting a false perception of Jesus, but not the real Jesus. And of course, we leave that judgment to God alone. Now, concerning your first part of your statement, that Jesus never claimed to be God, Cassie, have you ever, I will agree with you that Jesus never said, "I am God," okay? But have you ever considered passages where Jesus says things that can only be interpreted as a claim to be God? Like, for example, in Mark chapter 2, verse 5, Cassie, I don't know if you've ever considered this. Have you ever considered the passage where Jesus tells the paralytic that his sins are forgiven him?
No, that I have been having visions. I feel God's feeling, and God is pissed off. That religions that purport to spread God's love are separating people. He's not what God wants. It's not what Jesus would want, and it's not what Muhammad wants either.
Well, okay, I'm going to let you respond to that.
Yeah. Well, Cassie, first of all, it sounds that you're a bit disturbed and frustrated because of separation. And Cassie, I want to affirm that frustration with you. I agree that separation and division is not what Jesus wants, Cassie. Jesus himself prayed in John chapter 17, "I pray, Father, that they may be one as you and I are one." Jesus wills that we all be united to him so that we can be united to his Father with him for all eternity, Cassie. But the problem is that some people make choices contrary to love. And inasmuch as they make choices contrary to truth and contrary to love, and they outright reject that truth and outright reject love, they cannot be united for an eternity with truth and with love. And then once again, Cassie, you have to understand, and for our people listening out there, it is possible for somebody who is not within the visible boundaries of the Catholic Church to have a fundamental orientation to truth and to love, and their verbal rejections and expressions of their rejection of what we perceive, what we know to be true and what we know to be love, may very well be misconstrued, right? This is why we leave judgments only to God, and only He can judge the inner movements of the heart and of the mind. But at the same time, we must affirm that Jesus has proven Himself through His resurrection to be the fullness of the revelation of God the Father, which is the revelation of love. And He invites us, Cassie, if you're still listening out there, He invites all of us to embrace that love, which ultimately is embracing Him and embracing His truth, because only in Him can we find our happiness. For those who do not embrace Him, we cannot have happiness. And that applies to those who come to know that Jesus is the truth and actually say no to Jesus. And of course, Jesus is not going to force Himself on us. He is a God of love. And so with love comes the possibility to say yes or to say no. That's how God has set it up and willed it, willing that way of coming into union with Him. So hopefully that's helpful for Cassie.
Cassie left, but thank you so much for the call, Cassie. You should know, I mean, I don't know how much you listen to the show. You're always welcome to call and disagree with us. We don't intend to be disagreeable, and I'm sure that you don't intend to be disagreeable either, but I would hate to hear you leave upset. I think it's an opportunity for a conversation, and you're always welcome here. 888-318-7884, our number.
And I totally get Cassie's frustration with division and separation. That's something we all struggle with.
Yeah, we
right?
should be a little more passionate about that ourselves. Probably.
That's right. That's right. But at the same time, we have to realize truth itself necessarily entails an opposing view. So if I say Jesus is God, well, then that entails the opposing or contradictory view of Jesus is not God. They both can't be true and they both can't be false.
Yeah.
One has to be true and the other has to be false. And so it belongs to the very nature of truth to have opposing views. And of course, we have to roll up our sleeves and try to figure out which of the two views is the truth, right? Yeah. Which is the right view to hold to. And so I think we have to take that step back. For all of us who have a problem with division and separation, we have to take a step back and ask the more fundamental question, well, what is truth? And does truth necessarily involve opposing views? And the answer is yes. If you affirm this, then there's necessarily going to be the contradictory negation of that. Jesus is God. I affirm that to be true.
Yeah.
Well, that necessarily entails that I do not agree with the position that says Jesus is not God. And then, of course, we'll give our reasons for why we believe one or the other.
I have to say, too, one of the reasons we really want people to know Jesus is God, and I'm coming to you, Carlos, don't worry, the next caller. It is such good news. If when you realize this is God, then all the rest follows of this is how good God is. Like, what a good God to know that He would suffer and die for me on the cross is such a, I guess, a relief, to know that we're not just saying Jesus is God because we want to, be better than some other religion. Right. We're saying that because that being the case, everything is good. There's so much good news in that.
And what Jesus does for us is He offers to us our ultimate perfection, which is union with Him and His Father in heaven. And one of the means by which we achieve that is coming to embrace the truth of who He is, coming to embrace and accept the graces that He has to offer us. So it's ordered toward our ultimate perfection. We are made for the truth, right?
Yes.
And so inasmuch as Jesus offers us that truth, He's offering us our own perfection. He's offering us our own human happiness. And so it all gets back to that question, what is true?
Yeah.
And how does that relate? How does that question relate to me as a human being? And why should I try to answer that question? And it's ultimately so that we can flourish as human beings. And that flourishing as human beings consists in being united to the ultimate good, who is God. And that perfect union comes, of course, in heaven. And the gateway is through Jesus Christ.
Praise God. Amen to that. Carlos in Dallas, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. You're next, Carlos, with Carlo.
Yeah, that's funny. Carlos for Carlo.
Amen, brother.
So, so my question is, and hopefully it pertains to the theme today, but I need help understanding when Jesus is crying out upon his physical death, dying physically, my God, why has thou forsaken me? Right. I know it's referenced in Psalms, but I need help understanding that.
Yeah, well, Carlos, I actually have a chapter on this. I think in my book, Prepare the Way, I touch on this. But if not in my book, my memory's not serving me correctly here, I do have an article, Carlos. If you go to my website, carlobroussard.com, I have an article entitled, Did the Father Forsake Jesus? And I think that's the same title as it's presented at Catholic.com. So either carlobroussard.com or Catholic.com, Did the Father Forsake Jesus? I go into detail explaining these words of Jesus. And Carlos, you're right, brother, in saying that this statement of Jesus seems to be a reference to Psalm 22, because my God, why hast thou forsaken me is the first line of Psalm 22. And it was very common in rabbinical practice that in order to call to mind an entire psalm and the themes of the psalm, you would quote the first line. So we have this example as well in our own culture. If I start singing to you, Carlos, I love you, you love... Okay, well, we'll stop there.
But I love Barney.
You will immediately conjure in your imagination a purple dinosaur, right? And you will call to mind all of the themes of Barney: friendship, happiness, play, and all of that fun stuff. So I think this is what's going on the cross, that even on the cross, Jesus is exercising his role as prophet and as preacher. So the question becomes, Carlos, what's going on in Psalm 22? Well, definitely there's persecution going on that the psalmist describes in detail, such that they map on and match up with what Jesus is going through, to such a degree that I am poured out like water, all my bones are out of joint, my strength is dried up, right? My tongue cleaves to my jaws. They divide my garments among them. My hands are pierced. And so there's this long narrative of destruction, of persecution, right? But then at the end of the psalm, there is praise that extends beyond the afflicted to all the peoples of the earth. You got to check out verses 27 and 30, Carlos. Here's what it says. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before him. Posterity shall serve him. Men shall tell of the Lord to the coming generation and proclaim his deliverance to a people yet unborn, that he has wrought it. So what you have going on in Psalm 22 is this persecution, and through the persecution, the psalmist describes the one suffering as crying out to God, right, with faith and hoping for deliverance, that God will deliver and bring about deliverance. And then in response to that deliverance, Carlos, you have a proclamation and a praise extending beyond the afflicted to all the peoples of the earth, that all the families of the nations shall worship before him. Now, we come back to Jesus on the cross, Carlos, and what does Jesus say? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Calling to mind Psalm 22. What's the climax of Psalm 22? All the nations of the earth shall worship before the Lord. It's the ingathering of the Gentiles, that all people now have access to membership in God's covenantal family, that God's family is no longer restricted to the Jewish people, but membership in God's family is now being extended to all the nations. And that is what Jesus is proclaiming on the cross, because, Carlos, through his death on the cross, you and me, Carlos, and guess what? I assume you're not a Jew, and I sure as heck ain't a Jew, but because of Jesus' death on the cross, we can be saved, and we can worship before the Lord in every temple where the Lord is present, his body, blood, soul, and divinity. So I would pitch to you, Carlos, that what Jesus is doing on the cross is he is proclaiming the effects that his death on the cross and his self-sacrificial love is bringing about, namely the redemption of the whole entire human race and the ability for all human beings to become members of God's covenantal family.
Carlos, we have to leave it there because we've got to take a break. Thank you so much. Is Jesus God or is he a mere prophet? 888-318-7884 is the number if you'd like to participate in the conversation. And I can tell you we got lines open, so we will get you on with Carlo if you dial now. 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Do you want to end abortion, halt the attack on traditional marriage, and ensure religious freedom for ourselves and for our grandchildren? To do this, we must convert the culture. St. Paul's Street Evangelization is a grassroots initiative that recognizes this need and takes it to the streets. If you're interested in peacefully sharing the gospel in your area, visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
Dr. Doctor, featuring doctors Tom McGovern, Chris Stroud, and Andrew Mullally.
The number of people who are on government assistance expanded so much. Personally, I had patients in my office in tears saying, I never thought of myself as somebody on government assistance. I just bought a new car. I can afford a brand new car, but I'm still on Medicaid.
Dr. Doctor, Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
You're a good apologist when you can weave some Barney, the purple dinosaur, into your answer about Psalm 22, Jesus quoting it on the cross. That's a high-level apologetics maneuver. That's how you know you're dealing with the best with Carlo.
Am I fired now for singing Barney on the air?
No, you are not fired. You will be next time you sing Barney, but you get one.
I get one warning?
You get one, yeah. And if you sing My Little Pony, no warning. You're out. 888-318-7884, the number 888-318-7884. The topic this hour, Jesus, Emmanuel, or mere prophet. A great topic to call on if you are a Muslim or a Hindu person who might recognize a Muslim quite explicitly as part of the Muslim faith to recognize Jesus as a prophet, Hindu who might recognize Jesus as an enlightened one. You are welcome to call 888-318-7884. But certainly our fellow Christians are also welcome to call. Many who, we got to admit it, among Christians, there's a full range of approaches to understanding the idea that Jesus is God, some of which would fall within the bounds of the Orthodox faith, but some would fall outside of it. And we'd love to have that conversation with you as well. So whether you are Christian or non-Christian, the topic is for you this hour. Is Jesus God with us, or is Jesus merely a prophet? 888-318-7884. Up next is Ben in Arizona, watching on YouTube Live. Nice and cool time of year in Arizona. How you feeling, Ben?
I'm feeling good. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah. Go ahead. Your question for Carlo.
Okay, I could hardly hear you. Yeah. It's interesting. Someone mentioned Islam, and there are a lot of Muslims, and some of them are quite active at trying to proselytize or convert, whatever word you want to use, to Islam. And their tactic is to usually quote the Bible, where it seems that Jesus isn't God. Like Mark 13:32, he doesn't know the hour. And then they use John 14:28, the Father is greater than I. So how would a proper biblical response be? Because one accusation they say is, well, church fathers, they were not uniform. Like Justin Martyr taught subordinationism at Tertullian, etc. So it developed because it wasn't clearly taught in the Bible. How do we respond to that?
Okay, so you laid out on the table there two biblical passages, Ben, that our Muslim friends and others might appeal to in order to undermine our belief that Jesus is God. So Mark 13:32, that's when Jesus says, no one knows the day or the hour, talking about the day of judgment, the hour of judgment. The angels don't know, neither does the Son, only the Father, right? And then, of course, John 14:28, that's the passage where Jesus says, the Father is greater than I. So I'll say a few things in response to both. We'll see if I can do it in a concise way and with some brevity here, because it is packed. I mean, these are two big objections that require a lot of theological background to adequately answer, but we'll see what I can do here on the air. So, concerning the day, Jesus' acknowledgement that the Son does not know the day and the hour. In response to those who are critics, so there's sort of like a debate within Christianity and how to go about this, and with regard, and then separate from that is sort of the way in which we would have this conversation with critics. So in response to the critic who's trying to use this to undermine Jesus' divinity, all we have to say, Ben, is that we have to remember that Jesus has two natures. He has a divine nature, and he has a human nature. Because of that, he's able to say things of himself that apply to both natures. So Jesus is able to say of himself that I have forever existed and I rely on nothing for my existence, right? I have the power to change water into wine. I have the power to raise the dead. And he can ascribe those powers to his personhood, to himself, in virtue of his divine nature. But, Ben, because he also has a human nature, he can also ascribe to himself things that pertain to humanity. So he can say, I hunger, right? Insofar as he is human, insofar as he has a human nature. I thirst, insofar as I have a human nature. I laugh, I cry, I walk, right? I have a body insofar as I'm human nature, insofar as I have a human nature. So notice, Ben, that in response to our critics, even if we concede for argument's sake that Jesus is in reality acknowledging ignorance concerning the day and the hour, ignorance within his human nature, within his human intellect, as a Christian, we can simply say, well, all he's doing is ascribing to himself that belongs to his human nature. He is ascribing ignorance to himself insofar as he has a human intellect, right? And that in no way, Ben, would undermine his divinity. So just as he can be divine by virtue of his divine nature, but also hunger, thirst, and cry, and even die, so too he could be divine in virtue of his human nature, and also ignorant of the day and the hour of the final judgment insofar as he has a human intellect in his human nature. So that's our response to the critics in order to show that this passage in no way poses a threat to the Christian belief that Jesus is God, once we understand that Jesus is God in virtue of his divine nature, but he also has a human nature that he can ascribe to himself human things, okay? Now, of course, among Christians debate within Christian circles is sort of an in-house debate as to whether, in fact, Jesus in his human intellect was actually ignorant of the day and the hour. And so that's a different question as opposed to addressing the issue or the concern of our critics, okay? Now, I happen to hold to, now this is a can of worms here, and I don't have time to get into it, Ben, but I, just to put my stake in the ground, I guess, I happen to hold that Jesus did have knowledge of the day and the hour in his human intellect, but it was not from his human intellect. He had it by way of infused knowledge. So that's my claim. I don't have time to defend that. I apologize. All right, moving on. And all of our theologian friends out there are like, hollering at the radio there, because that's a huge debate within the Christian circle, within the Christian home, right? Within the church. But in no way does Mark chapter 13:32 pose a threat to belief in Jesus' divinity. Now, I know that's a lot. I apologize, Ben, but here we go. John 14:28, the Father is greater than I. And here's how, once again, what I said before applies here as well, Ben, because as St. Thomas Aquinas argues in his Summa Theologiae concerning this verse, Jesus, once again, can ascribe to himself what pertains to himself in virtue of his human nature, namely that the divine intellect, God, the divine reality that he has equal with the Father in virtue of his divine nature, is greater than him as man. So he can ascribe the greatness of God over and above himself insofar as he has a human nature, and in no way does that passage undermine his divinity.
Ben, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who called. So can we just resolve this once and for all? Jesus is God with us or a mere prophet?
God with us.
Okay, whew. I'm so glad. I thought that's the direction we were going, but I'm glad we wrapped that up. Hey, we're not done, though. We have the game show coming up, the Catholic Answers game show, which we have very cleverly titled The Catholic Answers Game Show. That will be coming up next. 2 contestants, 1 super great celebrity guest, and me. I got to go change my voice into my game show host voice, and we'll be right back. Wrapping up the work week with Catholic Answers game show right after this. A little bit of game show music. It's that time again. Time for the Catholic Answers game show. Last round of this game show is called Final Judgment, and a lot of people think we should just name the whole game show Final Judgment, but we haven't. Nope, Nick says no. So until we can get Nick on board with that, we don't have a consensus, and we'll just have to go with the name Catholic Answers Game Show. I am Cy Kellett, your game show host, and our super secret celebrity guest. He absolutely hates it when I introduce him that way. Carlo Broussard. Hi, Carlo.
Hey, Cy.
Thanks for being here for another hour.
You're welcome, man. Glad to be here.
So you know,
and I'm not a celebrity.
No, I know you don't like that, but you are to your family.
Guest, yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, I would hope so. I'm a celebrity. I hope my kids love me. I hope my wife loves me.
I think they do.
I think they look up to me.
Yeah. And we got two guests. I'll introduce you to our guests, and then we'll go over the rules of the game show, and then we will play. I strongly encourage you that you play along at home. Get a piece of paper, a pencil, call Grandma and Grandpa, gather the kids around the radio, maybe light a fire. No, it's almost July. Wrong time to light a fire, but get yourself some iced tea, relax, play along, and see who in your family is the best at the Catholic Answers game show. Our first guest is Christopher in Burke, Virginia. You will be contestant number 1. Christopher, are you there with us?
I'm here.
All right. So I was going to say, who are you and what's interesting about you, but I just said who you are. You're Christopher from Burke, Virginia. What's interesting about you, Christopher?
Well, my wife and I, Sarah, are about to celebrate our 13th anniversary, and we just had our 5th child, Timothy, back in May.
Congratulations. That is wonderful. That is really good news. All right. Well, I don't know our second contestant yet, but I'm already rooting for you. So let's go to our second contestant in Washington, D.C. Mike, you there with us, Mike?
I am.
And what's interesting about you, Mike?
I have been coaching football for almost 30 years, and I am currently the head football coach at the Catholic University of America.
Wow.
What?
That's really cool.
And you say the. Is that like the Ohio State? You just throw that on the beginning, Mike?
Well, if they can put the in front of Ohio, I can certainly put it in front of Catholic.
All right. That's awesome. I like it. I hope you don't run into anybody from Ohio, though. They're very protective of that over there in Ohio. All right, Mike, I changed completely now. I'm rooting for you. I am no longer rooting for Christopher. I'm rooting for you. You guys feel ready to play?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to go over the rules. And that for the folks at home, and then for you, gentlemen, and then if you're once you're comfortable with the rules, we'll start playing. Again, I encourage you, get a piece of paper, get a pencil, gather Grandma, Grandpa, and the kids around the radio. Don't light a fire. Get some iced tea and play along at home. I'll say the questions twice for those of you playing along at home so that you'll get a chance to answer. I ask our contestants to let me say the questions twice before you answer so that those playing along at home will have time to work on their answers. And it goes like this. We have 3 parts to the game show. In parts 1 and 2, you will each get 3 multiple choice questions. After parts 1 and 2, whoever has the most correct answers will go on to their final judgment, and the other will be given a special parting gift and sent home. And if you are tied after rounds 1 and 2, then Christopher, because he is contestant 1, and I don't even know why he's contestant 1. I don't know how we know that. Marie just assigns that. He gets to pick box A or B, and then we see what it says in the box he picked, and that is what we do. Whoever loses that heads home. One last rule, in rounds 1 and 2, you each have 2 afterlife lines. We call them afterlife lines here, sometimes called eternal lifelines, but I hope that that's what you get, eternal life in the afterlife, but I don't know that until we send you through final judgment. Afterlife lines go like this. You can use one, and that is Carlo will eliminate one wrong answer, and then you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. The other one is you can ask Carlo to give you the correct answer. Just give you the correct answer. Once you use an afterlife line, it is gone. If you use it in round 1, it doesn't come back in round 2. Is everybody clear on the rules?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, there's one other thing, though. When you ask Carlo to give you the correct answer, he must do so in Pig Latin, and then you will have to decipher that answer. Okay?
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go with okay for both. All right, contestant number 1. Carlo, you feel ready?
Let's do it, my friend.
Is your Pig Latin any better, or are you just?
It is not any better.
It is not any better. You know?
I suggest they do not ask me because they may very well not be able to decipher.
So when you get a master's degree in philosophy, as you recently did,
last year,
you don't have to master Pig Latin at all. They don't.
No,
none of that.
Unfortunately, not.
All right, Christopher in Burke, Virginia, father of 5, contestant number 1. Here is your first question. In his second letter. Oh wait, I gotta say something first before I do this. I forgot I divided today's game show. All the questions in part 1 will be about Saints Peter and Paul. Do either of you know why they'll be about Saints Peter or Paul? Can either of you guess?
I believe there's a solemnity on Monday.
Solemnity of Saint Peter and Paul. Yes, at the end of June, and then part 2 will all be about the sacrament of marriage. Do either of you know why the part 2 will all be about the sacrament of marriage? You shouldn't know this. It's because my wife Missy and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary this week.
Congratulations!
So yeah,
brother.
25 years married. So well, thank you very, very much. It was way harder on her than me, but but we made it so far. All right, Saints Peter and Paul. Then, in honor of the solemnity of Saints Peter and Paul coming up, in his second letter, Peter says, "We will one day."
Who's going first?
Oh, this is Christopher.
Okay.
In his second letter, Peter says that we will one day, A, see the divine nature, B, touch the divine nature, C, share in the divine nature. Let me say that again. In his second letter, Peter says we will one day, A, see the divine nature, B, touch the divine nature, C, share in the divine nature.
Well, I'm going to start early and ask Carlo to give me the right answer in Pig Latin.
All right, right away
off the bat, man.
Igpe Atenle, Carlo, go for it.
Okay, let's see. Okay, it's all right. Remind me again what I have to do. For Pig Latin.
Come on, man. Okay.
All right.
Pig Latin goes like this.
Letter.
You take the first letter and you put it at the end of the word,
and then add
the sound A.
Here we go.
The A sound.
Here we go. All right. Horese, nie. Hete, ivine de, aturene.
Don't even know. I don't even know.
I'm going to repeat that first word. Horese.
Yes. All right. So the question is, in his second letter, Peter says we will one day, A, see the divine nature, B, touch the divine nature, C, share the divine nature.
I'm going to go with C, share the divine nature.
That is correct.
You are correct.
Good job,
are you fluent
Chris.
in Pig Latin? As the father of 5, are you fluent in Pig Latin?
We hear a lot of gibberish around here, but no Pig Latin yet.
All right. Okay. Mike, your first question. The first successor of Peter as the leader of the church in Rome was A, forgotten to history, B, Linus, C, James the Just. Peter's first successor as leader of the church in Rome was A, forgotten by history, B, Linus, C, James the Just.
I'm going to go ahead and say B, Linus.
Good job. That is correct. Yeah, that's the stronger tradition. We find it in St. Irenaeus as well as other early fathers when they give us a list of the succession of the bishopric of Rome. But Irenaeus tells us that the blessed apostles, referring to Peter and Paul, having founded, that would refer to Peter, and built up, that would refer to Paul, committed into the hands of Linus the office of the episcopate. And what's interesting is Irenaeus says, of this Linus, Paul makes mention in the epistles to Timothy. And the reference there is 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 21, where Paul makes mention of a Linus. And scholars kind of go back and forth if that's the actual Linus, but it does seem to be.
I tend to believe the early church writers. I just go with like that guy. I mean,
he wouldn't.
Irenaeus,
he would know.
He knows a lot better than I know.
Right. There is another tradition of who succeeded Peter. Like there are some places in the tradition you'll find Anacletus as coming second.
Oh yeah,
as being the first successor to St. Peter.
Yeah.
Irenaeus says it's Linus, then Anacletus coming in line in third. So,
and then the famous one, Clement.
Clement. That's correct. That's correct. So Linus, Anacletus, then Clement, the third successor, fourth bishop of Rome.
And why would you keep a list of the bishops of Rome? Why would the early church do that, Carlo?
Well, what Irenaeus says, because that succession is the line of succession that has the truth, the apostolic truth handed down to us from the apostles. For all the churches must agree with that church, the Church of Rome.
Christopher and Mike, you're tied at 1 each after one question, and already the first break is upon us. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll continue with the Catholic Answers game show with Christopher and Mike and Carlo Broussard right after this.
Hi, this is Trevor Williams from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
EWTN, Communicating the Faith.
And I wanted to tell you guys how great your show is because I listen to you guys for every day for the past 5.5 months. It's because of you guys that I came to the Catholic faith. Now I'm going to church on Sunday for the first time because I just got out yesterday from jail. And I got my mom to go too, and my girlfriend is also going with me. Wow. She's willing to give the Catholic faith a try.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Oh, yeah, that's the game show music. And that means it's Catholic Answers Game Show, all tied up 1-1. Christopher in Burke, Virginia, and Mike in Washington, D.C., tied up 1-1. We go now to, and one lifeline has been used already. Christopher used the Pig Latin one, and I'm very grateful for that. Love to hear Carlo speak in Pig Latin. Question number 2 of round 1 for Christopher. Here's your second question. In the letter to the Galatians, Christopher, Peter rebukes St. Paul. St. Paul rebukes Peter, or Paul and Peter rebuke the Romans. Once again, in the letter to the Galatians, A, Peter rebukes St. Paul. B, St. Paul rebukes Peter. Or C, Peter and Paul rebuke the Romans.
I believe it's B, St. Paul rebukes St. Peter.
That is correct. Good job. Galatians 2:11. When Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned.
By the way, I just want to say this while Carlos here. That does not prove that Peter had no authority. As a matter of fact,
nor does it undermine his infallibility.
It proves, or it tends to do just the opposite. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to Catholic Answers Focus and listen to our recent interview with our guest, Carlo Broussard, on the instance in which St. Paul rebuked Peter, and Carlo will explain it.
That's actually a chapter in my book, Meeting the Protestant Challenge, which you guys are offering like a promo code or
that's
something,
right? Meeting the Protestant Challenge on sale. Look at you selling books. Way to go. It's not even getting
You better
close to
watch that
Christmas
seat,
time.
brother. I'm coming in.
All right, I'll just say it then. Right now, Meeting the Protestant Challenge is on sale, 30% off. Carrie puts it on sale whenever Carlo is on the air, and so you better grab it up while it's on sale. 30% off right now at shop.catholic.com. Shop.catholic.com. Mike, you are next. Here is your second question. Which of the following is true about St. Peter? Which of the following is true about St. Peter? He was such a powerful healer that people laid the sick out in places where they thought Peter's shadow might fall on them. Or B, he only healed when the apostles were all gathered together. Or C, he showed no evidence of being a healer at all. Question number 2 for Mike. I will repeat it for those playing at home. Which of the following is true about St. Peter? A, he had such power as a healer that people laid the sick out in places where they thought Peter's shadow might fall on them. B, Peter only healed when all the apostles were gathered together. Or C, Peter showed no evidence of being a healer at all.
I think I'll go with A.
That is correctamundo.
I was so hoping you would do Pig Latin on that one. That is the longest answer we've ever had
I know, right?
on this program.
It is.
Peter was such a powerful healer that people laid the sick out to just have his shadow fall on them.
Yeah, that's what St. Luke tells us in Acts chapter 5, verse 16. They even carried out the sick into the streets, laid them on beds and pallets, that as Peter came by, at least his shadow might fall on some of them. In Acts chapter 3, verse 2 chapters earlier, he actually healed a paralytic. That's when the individual is asking for money, and he says, "Gold nor silver do I have to give you, but in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, arise and walk." And then in Acts chapter 5, everybody's bringing the sick just so that his shadow would pass over them.
See, I kind of think maybe this doesn't work as an apologetic, but I think there's a little element of this that argues for the power of relics. That
it's related.
If his shadow can heal you, then that argues
maybe
for
his
the
garment,
or
right, bones left over, from him. Yeah,
which I've seen, by the way.
Cool.
I've seen the bones of
Lucky
St. Peter.
You.
Yeah,
I have not. I've been to Rome, but I haven't seen it.
Well, I'm way older than you, so you still have time. I was overwhelmed when I saw him. All right, question number 3, round 1. We are still tied 1-1. Christopher, your last question of round 1. The Apostle Paul was A, a Sadducee, B, a temple priest, C, a Pharisee. Once again, for those playing at home, the Apostle Paul was A, a Sadducee, B, a temple priest, or C, a Pharisee.
C, a Pharisee.
He knew that one right away.
Man, no
he knows
problem.
his Bible, man. Knows that Bible.
Yeah, he says himself that he's a Pharisee. Paul does, I mean.
Oh, you're right. I thought
not Christopher. He didn't say he's a Pharisee.
Acts 23:6. That's when Paul says, "Brethren, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. With respect to the hope and the resurrection of the dead, I am on trial."
By the way, if I may say this, a lot of good people were Pharisees. Not all the
Indeed,
Pharisees.
yeah.
They were a good group in many ways. All right.
And in fact, Jesus sided with them on several issues, such as the resurrection.
Right.
The Sadducees denied the resurrection. The Pharisees affirmed it, and Jesus sided with them on that particular issue.
Right. If you had to be one, I'd have rather been a Pharisee than a Sadducee. Seriously, the Sadducees, not so much. The bishops. I got to get. This is your last question of round 1, Mike. We're all tied up, so don't blow this. The bishops of the Orthodox churches. The bishops of the Orthodox churches are A, not successors of the apostles as Catholic bishops are. B, are successors of the apostles. C, are successors only of St. Paul, but not of St. Peter. Question number 3 for you. I'll repeat it again for those playing at home. The bishops of the Orthodox churches are A, not successors of the apostles as Catholic bishops are. B, successors of the apostles, or C, successors only of St. Paul, but not of St. Peter?
I think I'm going to have to use an afterlife line.
Okay.
And I will ask Carlo to give me the right answer in Pig Latin.
Thank you so much, Mike. Go ahead, Carlo.
Okay, here we go. Okay, all right, here we go. Sesors se, foe, hete, pasolzae.
Good luck, Mike. Hope that made sense to you.
So I think it was B, was successors of the apostles.
That's right.
You are correct.
Good job. Yes.
You are correct. Come
Our
on.
Orthodox brothers and sisters, that they have valid bishops. Those bishops are valid and legitimate successors to the apostles. What distinguishes them from Catholic bishops is
union with the Pope.
There you go. And we got a great book recently published by Catholic Answers Press on that issue by Joe Heschmeyer.
Which is one of the prizes at the end of the show.
Oh, cool. Called Pope Peter.
Pope Peter, yeah. But I always like to stress with people how close we are to the Orthodox.
Oh, sure.
I mean, so close to the Orthodox. Indeed. And we're not mad at you, Orthodox. I hope you're not mad at us. Trying to make up. We aren't mad at them, right?
No.
Okay, good. Thanks.
But we do recognize the essential differences.
Right, yeah. All right, we're into round 2, and we have time to do the first question of round 2 before we have to take another break. Our contestants in the Catholic Answers game show are Christopher in Burke, Virginia, and Mike in Washington, D.C. And we go now to round 2, all tied up, and each contestant has only one eternal lifeline left after lifeline, and that is the 50-50. Your first question, contestant number 1, Christopher, in round 2 is, by the way, all of round 2 is about the sacrament of marriage in honor of my wife, Missy, who survived 25 years of marriage with me as of this week.
Happy anniversary, Missy.
She's still crying. Even married couples, Christopher, may not resort to in vitro fertilization. Even married couples may not resort to in vitro fertilization because A, God creates life without our cooperation and we cannot interfere with that. B, in vitro fertilization separates a child's conception from the conjugal act of its parents. Or C, there is no certainty that an artificially conceived person will have a soul. Once again, for those playing at home, even married couples may not resort to in vitro fertilization because A, God creates life without our cooperation and we cannot interfere with that. Or B, in vitro fertilization separates a child's conception from the conjugal act of its parents. Or C, there's no certainty that an artificially conceived person will have a soul.
In vitro fertilization separates the conception from the conjugal act of the parents.
Very good.
That's pretty good, and he gave the answer, too.
That's pretty good.
He didn't just go B. He gave the whole thing.
Amen.
Good for you.
Yeah, paragraph 2376 in the Catechism states, these techniques, heterologous artificial insemination and fertilization, infringe the child's right to be born of a father and mother known to him and bound to each other by marriage. And of course, there's a whole lot of philosophical principles underlying that teaching.
But let me just say this. If you were conceived by in vitro fertilization, you have a soul.
Amen.
Never worry about that. Every child conceived, no matter the method of their conception, has a soul.
Amen to that. And they're created in the image and likeness of God. Right?
Yeah, right.
And that they're human being with dignity. We love them.
Right. It's just like if our parents weren't married when we were conceived. Yep. You still get the same soul.
That's right. It's an interesting thing of the mystery of how God cooperates, right? That God acts in human history, even in these cases where children are brought about through immoral means, right?
Yeah.
But that God still acts and directly creates a rational soul.
You know who else has soul?
Who?
Ray Charles. Oh, man.
Oh,
no, he does. Ray Charles has soul.
I had to take off the philosophical cap for a second. It took a while.
Carlos looking at me like, what
that.
are you talking about? Okay, it's a different kind of soul. All right, let's get one more question in before we have to go to the break. At least one more question. And this is, Mike, this is your first question of round 1. I got to say, I'd be scared of Christopher right now because he nailed it on the IVF one. So here's your question. Catholics believe that marriage is A, an eternal bond, B, a lifelong bond, C, a lifelong bond except in cases of annulment. So listen carefully. This is a tricky question. For those playing at home, Catholics believe that marriage is A, an eternal bond, B, a lifelong bond, C, a lifelong bond except in cases of annulment. Mike, your answer.
I'm going to go with B, lifelong bond.
Mike's been hanging around those moral philosophers at the Catholic University of America, man. Yes, that is correct. Paragraph 1644 in the Catechism makes that clear, that the unity and indissolubility of the spouses' community of persons embraces their entire life. And we have it on St. Paul's teaching in Divine Revelation in Romans chapter 7, verse 2. A married woman is bound by law to her husband as long as he lives, but if her husband dies, she is discharged from the law concerning the husband. So if she marries another, she's not guilty of adultery because the bond is only for this life.
I like that Mike didn't fall for a lifelong bond except in cases of annulment, because in cases of annulment, there was no marriage.
Bond to begin with.
Yeah, so
right?
that's I tried to emphasize the word marriage.
But even A is a tricky one too. The eternal bond. There are a lot of Catholics out there who think that bond, that real bond that makes man and woman, husband and wife, continues to exist in the afterlife in heaven. We talked about that on a previous show when we talked about heaven. We had a couple of callers asking about those relationships and how that bond does not continue. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to recognize my wife as my wife in this life, right?
No, all the bonds that we have are still there, just not that marital bond.
Right.
But all the interpersonal bonds.
That's right. We're talking about that real fancy word here, ontological, like that reality that makes man and woman, husband and wife.
Like for a priest, he's a priest forever. When he's in heaven, he is a priest.
It's always
still.
there. That is correct.
Yeah, but I tell you what, we probably get more calls on people who want to know if their dog is going to be in heaven with them than whether their husband or wife. It's going to be what does that tell you about human nature?
Right. We got that question too last time.
All right, we got two great contestants. We're all tied up. We either have geniuses or I'm terrible at writing questions. It's the Catholic Answers game show. We got to continue with round 2. Then we'll have one person head on to Final Judgment with us. So we find out who's going on to their Final Judgment right after this on the Catholic Answers game show.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Cy. I'm really proud of the 2 episodes of Catholic Answers Focus that we have for you this week. And if you haven't yet become a subscriber to our free podcast, this is definitely the week you should start. Monday, we've got an interview with Father Hugh Barber about the relationship between your soul and the Blessed Trinity. How is it that the triune God relates to your soul? Talk about news you can use. And Wednesday, we tackle Christopher Columbus with the world's leading Columbus scholar, Dr. Carol Delaney. Is it time to give up on Columbus? In the light of modern scholarship, should we be taking down Columbus statues and murals? Prepare to be surprised by the truth of the man. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Focus wherever you get your podcasts or listen anytime at CatholicAnswersFocus.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Every Catholic has heard the challenge. How can you believe that? Don't you know the Bible says? It's a challenge we have to meet. If we can't reconcile apparent contradictions between Scripture and Catholic teaching, how can our faith survive? And if we can't answer our Protestant brothers and sisters, how will they ever come to embrace the fullness of the faith? In Meeting the Protestant Challenge, apologist Carlo Broussard gives you the knowledge and tools you need to answer 50 of the most common Bible-based objections to Catholicism. Be prepared to give an answer. Order your copy of Meeting the Protestant Challenge today by calling 844-239-4952, visiting shop.catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Monday on More to Life, Manic Monday.
We'll help you reclaim your peace at the start of the week.
That's Monday on More to Life. Now, back to Catholic Answers.
Catholic Answers game show. We are right in the middle of the game show. It is a neck and neck competition. It's closer than Ford Ferrari. See that movie, Ford Ferrari?
Oh, fantastic show.
Christopher from Burke, Virginia is contestant number 1. He's a father of 5, newest baby, just came in May, and we congratulate you on that, Christopher. We're very impressed that you sound like such a well-rested person, given the new baby in the house. Our other contestant is Mike from Washington, D.C., and he is the coach of the Catholic University football team. As a journalist, I am obligated to ask a question if at the appropriate, like when you get somebody on the mic, you got to ask them a question. So, Mike, are you going to have a football season this year or not? What's going to happen at the Catholic University?
We are working towards it. We have plans in place, and as of right now, we are planning on having it.
Oh, wow.
So we need to be ready for anything at this point, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're going to need you to beat MIT, okay? Like,
yeah.
Seriously, we cannot lose to MIT. I mean, it's faith and science. We're going to need I got to say this while we got Mike, too.
They are not opposed. They are reconcilable.
Faith and science. Okay, I'm sorry. I made a joke about faith and science. I'm so sorry. Now Carla's going to give me the
joke around me, man.
I can't make that joke around a Thomist. But I got to say, Catholic University is a major school, and it's really genuinely Catholic. Wouldn't you agree with that, Mike? I mean, I feel like it's a school we can be proud of. You know, it's not. We got a lot of Catholic universities that are kind of in name only, but you guys are a Catholic school.
Yes, that's 100%, and it's harder with that age group I think sometimes, but President Garvey does a phenomenal job of helping them see the truth and value in being authentically Catholic.
We're not going to start bragging about President Garvey. No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear it because we know we've got lots of these small Catholic schools who are really trying very hard with the Catholic identity. It's great to have a good, big, healthy, well-known school that's very deadly serious about its Catholic identity.
Yeah, they have a very robust philosophy department. I follow some of the professors there and the lectures that they give, and their press is phenomenal. So Catholic University of America Press and the publications that they put out is fantastic stuff.
Yeah. So all that is to say, if this ends in a tie, we're getting rid of Christopher. We're keeping Mike. Okay. So all right, where are we? You guys, help me out, Nick. What question am I on? Question number 5? No.
Number 4, right here.
Oh. Okay. So this is question number 1 of round 2. No, question number 2. Mike, how many questions have I asked you in round 2?
1.
I've asked you 1. And how many have I asked you, Christopher?
Just 1.
Okay, so we're going to Christopher with his second question of round 2. Marie was telling me that. I just wasn't looking through the glass at the right spot. Okay.
That's number 3, I think.
Christopher, when a baptized Protestant marries a baptized Christian, A, their marriage is sacramental. B, their marriage is valid but not sacramental. C, their marriage is not valid. Once again, for those playing at home, when a baptized Protestant marries a baptized Catholic, their marriage is A, sacramental, B, valid but not sacramental, or C, not valid.
It is valid and sacramental provided it is done in accordance with the church, with they get sign off from the bishop and
stuff. It's not an essay question, all right? It's a multiple choice. But yeah, you did really well.
Brother,
you did without dispensation in the Protestant church.
Yeah. Dude, you totally knocked it out of the park. That was a grand slam. In fact, when I was reading over this before the show, I said, "Oh no, they might get confused because it's on condition that it's in the church that the Catholic is getting married with
a dispensation from the bishop."
Well, that's for lyceity.
Yeah.
But it still would be valid even if he wouldn't. But still, getting a Catholic marrying a Protestant within
the Catholic Church.
Right.
That's what I should have added to that.
Yeah, but as Christopher was talking about the dispensation is necessary for lyceity of this sort of marriage, right?
Yeah.
But not validity. So only if you're marrying a non-baptized person will the dispensation from the bishop be necessary for validity, as I understand it. But that was awesome. I was so proud of
that.
Chris.
That was good.
He put in all the nuances and the conditions. That was fantastic.
All right, so Chris, you don't have to write the essay at the end of the course. You're dispensed from that. All right, your number 2 question of round 2 for Mike. Marriage is the only sacrament. Mike, marriage is the only sacrament that A, was already an institution before Christ raised it to the status of sacrament. B, no priest of the Catholic Church can receive, or C, the government has the right to deny. Once again, for those playing at home, marriage is the only sacrament that A, was already an institution before Christ raised it to the status of a sacrament, B, that no priest of the Catholic Church can receive, or C, that the government has the right to deny.
it was already an institution.
Very good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Because God made man and woman that the two shall be joined and become one flesh from the get-go.
From the get-go, right?
That's it, brother.
And then Jesus in Matthew's gospel, what God has joined
together, let no man put asunder. Yeah, and Jesus raises it to the level of sacrament, so that through this natural institution now will be a means by which grace will be communicated.
Yeah. But I thought maybe someone might get tripped up on no priest of the Catholic Church can receive, because most people would say priests can't get married.
That's right, but you said no priest.
Right.
But there are some priests in the Catholic Church who are married.
Like Maronite rite, for example.
Correct, and even those former...
Or Melkite rite. Maybe both. I don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But like, for example, my pastor at the Ordinariate Parish in Marietta, he's married.
Yeah.
Former Anglican, converted to Catholicism. So within the Ordinariate, within the Catholic Church, many of the priests are married. And that's even here in the Latin rite, right, in the West.
That's right. Even with special
permission, correct.
Okay, so final question of round 2 for Chris in Burke, Virginia. Chris, it is a grave offense against marriage, A, for spouses to attempt to regulate the spacing of children, B, for governments to coerce parents to have fewer children, or C, for a person to seek an annulment if the spouse does not want it. Once again, for those playing at home, it is a grave offense against marriage, A, for the spouses to attempt to regulate the spacing of children, B, for the government to coerce parents to have fewer children, or C, for a person to seek an annulment if the spouse does not want it.
I believe I know, but I'm going to use my last afterlife line so as not to commit the sin of pride.
All right, so let's get not to commit the sin of pride. Good for you, Christopher. So eliminate one wrong answer.
I'll eliminate A, for spouses to attempt to regulate the spacing of children. Do
you want me to give you the two that are left, or are you all set?
Please.
So the two that are left is it's a grave offense against marriage, either B, for governments to coerce parents to have fewer children, or C, for a person to seek an annulment if the spouse does not want it.
I'm going to go with B.
Amen to that.
It is indeed a grave offense. I'm impressed that you eliminated A, because I thought that was the trickiest one. It is actually acceptable for parents or for spouses to attempt to regulate the spacing of children. That's acceptable.
On condition number 1, you have just reasons to do so.
Yeah.
And then on condition number 2, you use the morally permitted means to achieve that end of spacing children,
which God gave us.
Natural family planning,
right?
Which excludes contraception.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much, Christopher. You have made it through rounds 1 and 2 with a perfect score. So it all comes down to this question for Mike in Washington, D.C. Mike, the Catechism of the Catholic Church calls marriage A, a union of God with the human race, B, a collaboration for raising children, or C, a partnership of the whole of life. Once again, for those playing at home, the Catechism of the Catholic Church calls marriage A, a union of God with the human race, B, a collaboration for raising children, or C, a partnership of the whole of life.
I'm going to follow Christopher's lead and ask Carlo to eliminate one of the wrong answers.
Well, Carlo, will you eliminate one wrong answer?
All right, I'll eliminate B, a collaboration for raising children.
All right, let me give you those two answers again then. The Catechism of the Catholic Church calls marriage A, a union of God with the human race, or B, a partnership of the whole of life.
A partnership of the whole of human life.
Yep, correct.
Nice.
That's C. He said A, but he meant C.
That's
right. He got the answer right. Good job. Yeah, that's paragraph 1601 in the Catechism. It makes it very clear, calling marriage a partnership of the whole of life. And this actually is a question that was answered previously.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, in the question where it had to do with a marriage being a lifelong bond.
So but the whole of life also doesn't mean just the duration of life. It means everything that you have is shared as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
Good
my
insight,
wife is constantly throwing my stuff out.
But then again, this was a question. This was a question having to do with what the Catechism says specifically. Right. So that's different. Yeah. Good.
Okay. We haven't done this for a while. We are now through 2 rounds. I have to. We got to eliminate one person, and then we will go to final judgment. Although Marie, I'd keep both of their names on file for when we're doing the Tournament of Champions at the end of the year, if we are able to do that, because these are both champions. These are undefeated men. But Christopher, hello, Christopher. I hope you weren't watching on the internet. I just gave away the correct answer. Christopher, you got to pick box B or box A, and then that will tell us who's going home. Box B or box A, Christopher?
I'm going to go with A.
All right, he picks box A, and that says... Sorry, you do not advance. I'm sorry, Christopher. Christopher, you've been a great contestant, and we're going to give you both of Carlo's books. Carlo is the author of Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church, and, of course, the author of the one we've been saying
is that what you're going to say?
The awesome author of the one we've been saying is on sale right now. That is Meeting the Protestant Challenge, 50-something.
How to answer 50 biblical objections to Catholic beliefs.
Christopher, I'm sorry that you eliminated yourself.
That's all right. Hey, thank you so much for having me on. Mike, congratulations. Good luck.
Yeah, it was great having you, Chris.
What a great contestant. Amen. We'll send you both of those books.
Thanks, Christopher.
Hang on the line so Marie can get your data. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back for Mike's final judgment.
This is Bishop Chad Zielinski from the Diocese of Fairbanks of Northern Alaska, and you are listening to Catholic Answers Live.
EWTN, Communicating the Faith.
Fallen away Catholic years and years ago, doing my own thing, and my mom and dad never gave up on me, and I know it was the Holy Rosary, and they kept after me. Philip, pray your rosary, and eventually I did. I'm a member of the Knights of the Immaculata, Maximilian Kolbe's group. I'm with the Legion of Mary, and I haven't stopped leading the rosary in nursing homes, thanks be to God.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Catholic Answers Game Show music. Our special guest, Carlo Broussard, here helping us out. And Christopher got eliminated, not because he got any wrong, but because he picked box A, and that eliminated him. And so we are left for final judgment for Mike from Washington, D.C. Mike, do you feel ready to face your final judgment?
I hope so.
Yeah. Do you need an anointing or anything before facing your final judgment?
I'll always ask for the apostolic blessing if I get a chance.
Yeah, right. A good choice. Excellent. All right, so it's 10 true or false questions. For each question, I'm going to say the name of a book before I ask the question, and you win that book if you get that question right. If you get all 7 correct, we add Trent Horn's brand new course on at our School of Apologetics. You get to take Trent Horn's course on ethics, the introduction to ethics at the School of Apologetics. Ready to go, Mike, on the true or false questions?
Ready.
All right. The first one you're playing for is Pope Peter. That's a brand new book from our good friend Joe Heschmeyer. I don't have a copy of it here, or I did a second ago, but I can't find it, so I can't hold it up. But you're playing for Pope Peter. Here you go. True or false? The earliest non-biblical Christian text is sometimes referred to as the teaching of the 12 apostles and is also called the Didache.
True.
Good job.
Yep. I don't think we know that for an absolute certainty, but we're pretty certain that's the earliest non-biblical Christian writing.
Some will date Clement's letter to the Corinthian church, Clement of Rome, to like AD 70. But I mean, even
that would put it in the same ballpark anyway.
Right, but even the Didache, some will put it even before that.
The Didache famous for telling you how to baptize.
Baptize in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and then also showing us that the early Christians, when living water was not available, then the pouring method was used, and thus valid Christian baptism.
I love it because it's so practical. It's like if there's cold living water, baptize with that. If there's no cold water, use warm water. If there's no there's no living water, just get some water and
just pour it over.
Pour it over them like
three times. Pour it 3 times in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Okay, you won Pope Peter. Congratulations. So you are now playing for John DeRosa. John DeRosa was our guest earlier in the week, a great guest. A friend of yours, Carl.
Yeah, good friend of mine.
One Less God Than You is the name of the book. And here it is. True or false, Mike? The Gospel of Luke is probably based on the preaching of St. Paul.
True.
Oh,
our first wrong question.
No.
You know, that's tricky. That's actually
because Luke was a good friend of Paul.
That's right.
But I was thinking, Luke says right in the beginning,
Luke 1:1-2, and as much as many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the things which have been accomplished among us, just as they were delivered to us by those from the beginning, were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word. So he bases his gospel on eyewitnesses.
And guess who was not an eyewitness?
Paul was not. He was an eyewitness of the resurrected Lord,
yes,
but not of Jesus' life and his ministry. But what trips us up there is our mind immediately associates Luke with Paul, and we miss the gospel of Luke. So that was a good question. Sorry,
okay, finally I asked that
tricky question, man.
I apologize for that, and I'll tell you what: One Less God Than You, how to answer the slogans, cliches, and fallacies that atheists use to challenge your faith, is a really, really good book, and now you're not getting it.
Come on, man, where's the punchline? But
should we let him play for it again? Okay, we'll do.
Oh, what? No, I thought you were going to give it to him anyway.
No, I'm not giving away free books for nothing. Get the question right
if
you want.
We're in modern culture. Everybody wins, right? Nobody loses.
No, this is a football coach, man. He knows you need to earn it. You earn it on the field. Or you don't. Is that right, Coach? Am I right?
No, you're 100% right. Don't give it away. I got to earn it.
Okay, so I'll let you earn it this time. We'll play again for One Less God Than You. True or false? Okay, now I feel bad about this because... Well, I'm just going to give it to you. True or false? The Gospel of Mark is probably based on the preaching of St. Peter.
True.
Yes! Good job, Coach.
I thought you were going to question yourself on that one.
Yeah, we know that from an early Christian document. Eusebius, an early church historian, he actually records Papias, early Christian bishop, 2nd century Christian bishop, who's talking about the elder John, who was an eyewitness of Jesus' ministry.
Yeah.
And how this elder John informed the bishop Papias that Mark was the one, like the Gospel of Mark was basically the memoirs of Peter.
Yeah.
And so that's where that tradition comes from.
And it makes sense because Mark is a follower, first of St. Paul, and then of St. Peter.
That's right. And so it's a very, very early tradition. So we have historical evidence of a close associate, of an eyewitness giving us records of Jesus' life, which is, according to the historical standards for ancient literature and ancient events, that's gold.
All right, so question number 3, you are playing for a book called Secrets of Heaven. You really want to win this one. This is from our friend Sebastian Walsh. Question number 4, excuse me. Father Sebastian Walsh. Did I not say Father?
No, you missed it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Father Sebastian Walsh, just one of the greats. Just one of the greats.
Guy. And mine.
And not everybody who can talk to you about the faith can write about it, but turns out he can.
He can do both.
So I hope you win this one. True or false, Mike? True or false? In the first letter to the Corinthians, St. Paul argued forcefully that Christians should not be suing each other in Roman courts.
True.
Good job. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 1-3. When one of you has a grievance against a brother, does he dare go to law before the unrighteous instead of the saints? Do you not know that the saints will judge the world? And if the world is to be judged by you, are you incompetent to try trivial cases? Do you not know that we are to judge angels? How much more matters pertaining to this life?
St. Paul, very few people know that, but he did recommend overturning statues, however, if you're upset. No, he did not. I'm only joking.
And notice he's speaking about amongst Christians.
Yeah, but each
Christian
other. Don't sue each other
correct.
in a Roman court. All right, you won that book. Now you're playing for Meeting the Protestant Challenge, Carlo's book, Meeting the Protestant Challenge. True or false, the Apostolic Fathers were Peter, James, and John. Mike, true or false, the Apostolic Fathers were Peter, James, and John?
False.
Good job, Mike. Yes. Yeah, the Apostolic Fathers refer to those very early Christian writers, Clement of Rome, Polycarp of Smyrna, and Ignatius of Antioch.
And they knew the apostles.
Indeed.
That's why they're called the Apostolic Fathers. These are people who wrote about early Christianity and knew the apostles. All right, you're doing really, really well. Now you're playing for Carlo's book, Prepare the Way. Prepare the Way. True or false? St. Paul urged his fellow Christians to work out their salvation with fear and trembling. True or false? St. Paul urged his fellow Christians to work out their salvation in fear and trembling.
False.
Oh, that's true, brother.
No.
Yeah.
You've been listening to too much Protestant radio, man.
Yeah, Philippians chapter 2, verse 12, St. Paul says, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For God is at work in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. So,
right now you're playing for, well, you know what? I want you to get Prepare the Way, so we'll play again for Prepare the Way. But I do want to throw in Catholic Answers, 20 Answers, Faith and Works, just to help you on this one. All right, we'll add that one. So you're playing for those two books. Your final question, true or false, Mike? St. Peter said that some things in the letters of St. Paul are hard to understand. True or false? St. Peter.
True.
Oh, I got it right.
Very good.
He's not waiting for me.
Yes, good job. Right. Yeah, 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 16, talking about Paul's letters, Peter says there are some things in them hard to understand, which the ignorant and unstable twist to their own destruction as they do the other scriptures. So that's a clear warning that it's possible to twist the scriptures, which in turn leads to our own destruction. It leads to sinful behavior, right? Yeah. And separation from the Lord. So it's very important that we get our reading and interpretation of scripture right, which means that's why it's very important to read scripture within the heart of the church.
You're a great guest, Mike. You've won Pope Peter, One Less God Than You, Secrets from Heaven, Meeting the Protestant Challenge, Prepare the Way, and 20 Answers, Faith and Works. I would make sure you put a green check mark next to Prepare the Way, because he did win that on the last question. Also, it turns out I am now a fan of the football team of the Catholic University.
That's cool, man. So if we're ever in D.C., we're going to have to get some tickets and
What's the name of the team, though? I don't even know. What's the name of my team now?
We are the Cardinals.
Oh, you're the Cardinals. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that like Catholic Cardinal?
Or? Yeah. What kind of Cardinals are you? Are you like Cardinal Newman and Cardinal, or you are like the bird, the Cardinals?
The mascot looks like a bird, but I think they were going for something bigger.
All right. And all right, so I got to get myself a T-shirt.
Maybe we can go and get the old Cardinal outfit with the big hat, and the long.
When they're playing, we'll wear that.
We'll wear that in the stands and cheer.
All right, Carlo and I are coming to a game if it's allowed. Thanks, Mike. I got to let you go. No, hang on. Make sure Marie's got everything she needs from you, and then we will send you your fabulous room full of gifts and prizes. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Wow.
Well, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Chris and Mike did
two great
well.
Contestants.
Indeed.
Two really, really good contestants. Hey, Carlo, I want to tell you something I'm thinking about and I'm going to be praying about this weekend. I'm just going to share it with you while we got a minute.
Fire away.
There's a Supreme Court decision on abortion that they have waited until the last day of the term to come out. And it'll come out next Monday or Tuesday. I have a feeling that it may mean big things, the fact that they waited till the end of the term. I don't know anything about that, but I'm going to be praying about that, and I hope that everybody else will pray about that this weekend, that the Supreme Court was kind of mixed in its decisions this year, but maybe they'll end the term with a really positive. It's a case about Louisiana, about abortion clinics in Louisiana. But there's always the chance that the Supreme Court, will use that as an opportunity to maybe move some things in a positive direction.
We pray for victory for life.
Yeah, amen. Pray for victory for life. Carlo Broussard has been our guest. He's apologist here at Catholic Answers. If you want him as a speaker, we're going to be getting back out on the road. Go over to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com and get Carlo to come wherever you have speakers. Especially, he'd like to be speaking in the Washington, D.C. area on a Saturday when the Cardinals are playing. All right, so if you, if you can get him in on a weekend.
We got a new friend, man.
Yeah, we got a new team, the Cardinals. My two teams, the Indianapolis Colts. Do you know why the Indianapolis Colts?
Why?
Because Phillip Rivers is the quarterback there now.
Oh.
So that's my team.
Cool.
I'll never give up on the Chargers, but now that's my team this year. And now I got the Cardinals in
there you go.
In Washington, D.C. Thanks, Carlo.
Hey, thank you, Sire. It was great fun, man.
And we will take a little break and be back. I can't stand it. I hate when we have to go home from this program. But you know what? It's still true. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations. And I think it's true. We'll see you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.